Hey, welcome back to my allotment and thanks for joining me. Hello, if you're new here, I'm Katrina. This is my allotment garden where I grow a whole range of fruit, veg and cut flowers as well. But today we're going to be harvesting some potatoes, my second early, which are the variety called Charlotte. Great variety to choose if you're new to growing potatoes, and they do so well here in the British climate. I grow mine in containers, and you may have watched my video on how I planted them in the springtime. It's the same method that I've been doing for a couple of years now, so it's tried and tested, and especially last year I had a really good harvest of my main crops. But today we're going to see how the shallots are doing, and I've harvested one pot already and they were okay, they weren't bad, but I'm just a little bit worried because the only thing that I've changed from last year was my compost. I accidentally picked the silver grow with John Innes instead of the usual multi-purpose, which is all peat free, and I've noticed it's really sandy and it's been really difficult to keep the pots watered enough. So I'm sure we're going to harvest something, but how big they are and how many we get, I'm not sure, so we'll have to see. So how do you know when your second early potatoes are ready for harvest? Well, they say it usually takes about 12 or 13 weeks for them to reach their maturity, and then you can harvest them. For me, it's been about 15 weeks now, and the greens, the leafy parts of the plants have completely died down. They'll turn yellow and shrivel, or some people prefer to wait about 2 weeks after they've bloomed. Well, the foliage is now completely died back. We've got a few weeds on the top here from the mulch that I used, but yeah, you can see it's all completely crispened and died back, and we've even got the little potatoey green seeds that you shouldn't eat, but they look like green tomatoes. So yes, this pot contained 2 seed potatoes of the Charlotte variety, so let's tip them out and see what we got. Oh, it's actually a lot damper than I thought. This isn't looking too bad. Oh, nice small size still. Sometimes at this point they start to get really quite big. Oh, you know what? This has actually held a lot of the rainwater that we've had over the recent weeks. We've had a lot of storms, so it's not looking as bad as I thought. Let's get all of that out. They are still quite small though, and I think that's because I planted 2 in the pot rather than 1. If I planted 1, you tend to get fewer potatoes but bigger ones, whereas when it's the Charlottes, I like to use them for salads and things, so I actually quite like them small. This is not as bad as I anticipated. This is actually really quite good. Haven't found the seed potato yet. And they actually look really healthy as well. Don't forget the tiny ones, they'll sprout again if you don't pick them up. So that's the first harvest. Still lots of really small ones which could have got bigger. I'm thinking that's because of the water retention issues, but you know, nice little harvest there. It's probably about 600 grams maybe. I don't have my scales, I'll have to check at home. Okay, and now for my second bucket, which also had 2 seed potatoes in it and is equally covered in a few weeds. I'm really lucky that, there you go, and you can see it's completely started to die back. Ow, Stino, get rid of you. I've also had quite an issue with ants again this year, which is always a problem for me, but I noticed some of them had made nests in some of the pots, particularly that one over there. So that's also been something to contend with, and obviously they dry out the soil. And let's see how this one is. Again, still quite damp, this one. Oh, lots of tiddlers. How are your potatoes doing this year? I'm sure I'd usually have some quite big ones. Aren't too many ants in here, so I don't think they've nested. Oh, that's the old sea potato. Do you grow your spuds in the ground or in pots like me? I think a few more people may have tried containers this year based on the video that I put up and the harvest from last year, so I'd really love to know, if it's your first time growing in pots, how has your harvest been? Obviously we've still got all of the main crops to look forward to as well. And this soil, by the way, you can use it to either mulch your beds, or you can put it in your compost bin. Some people ask me, can I use that again to grow potatoes? And in theory, yes you can. The only thing is that the nutrients in this will be somewhat depleted now. So, and also you've got to think about disease in your plants. That could be also now in the soil. So I always recommend starting new plants with new fresh compost, and I use this just to mulch the beds. So that's why I've tipped it out here, because I'm just going to rake it through and then perhaps sow some beetroot seeds on it or something for a late crop. Well, I think that's it for that pot, and it looks quite similar to the other. So yeah, not too bad, to be honest. Pretty happy with that. So that's my second early crops. Now I'm just going to have a quick look at the other plants and see how they're doing and when they might be ready. Plants here at the end are my Cara, which is the one that creates really massive potatoes, and they've been attacked by slugs. And I was also a little bit worried about some of this browning around the edges, and at first I thought I may have had blight, particularly on some of the other plants further that way. But what I think is actually happening is that the plants were actually just drying out quite a bit, and it was just that keeping on top of the moisture that I was struggling with. But otherwise the plants, they really don't look like anything like last year's. They are not that leafy, really not that bushy at all. I mean, look at that one, it's so bare at the bottom. Whereas last year it was just completely covered in foliage. This one's starting to yellow. Perhaps harvest this one soon. That's the King Edward. That one is also dying back, so that means it's almost ready for harvest. This one here is the Pink Mayan, which was my alternative to Pink Gypsy, which is what I usually grow. And it's also got the black tips, and again I think this is just where it's been drying out. And it's not blight, because blight are usually spot shaped, and you'll see them often on the middle of the leaves and not just the edges. There's no black on the stem, but it's just dying back and drying out, so that's ready for harvest soon. Oh look, you can actually see one of the potatoes there on the surface of the Pink Mayan, and oh, it's actually looking like a good size, and that one's starting to grow because it's got the sunlight on it, and I should probably cover that up else it will turn green. Oh look, there's more. Hello. These are looking a lot different to what I expected. This on the top of the compost is the mulch that I've been using, so the compost underneath, and it is still quite dry. And I mean, look, if you look at the sides here, it's completely coming away from the sides of the pot. It's just been that difficult to keep them watered enough. But it looks like we're going to have a result still, but I'm going to leave this pot for another couple of weeks yet. Let me know if you want a separate harvest on all my varieties this year. So there we have it, that's the remaining crop of my second early potatoes this year. My shallots, I've got a nice range of sizes, and I'm pretty happy with the result. It's been an odd season that's much better than I thought it'd be. How have your potatoes done? Do let me know in the comments. I'd love to know, especially if you're using pots again this year like I am. I've still got all of those main crops to harvest, so if you want a separate harvest video on those, then please do let me know. So yeah, I'm going to take these home now and enjoy them. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.